I think we're live now. All right. So Heather and I were just having a conversation that got us thinking about those moments when you look back at life and you realize just how badass you've been, what you've been through, and those life-changing events that led to those badass moments, like a phone that you just can't turn off.
Shut my phone off. So here's the thing. It's like you
know what you've been through, right?
Yeah.
All those moments that you've been through, those life-changing events that led to those badass moments. Sometimes we have to look back to fully appreciate where we are right now. So feel free to share your moments as we share ours.
I'm Heather, by the way. If you've been following us, you know that I'm Heather and this is David. But
this is my wife, my life, and my partner.
So we don't often share our personal story because our business is about helping you find your badass moments and appreciating them and creating your amazing badass life, right?
Yep.
But today, those badass moments sort of intersect in today's story for me and David.
Today's story is all about that intersection of collision. And speaking of collision, Heather and I collided in 2008 and created our business, Zen Rose Garden, helping clients through some of the darkest traumas and emotional upsets of life, the darkest moments in those traumas. And we've grown quite a bit since then. So we eventually created in 2018, 10 years later, we created Zen Ed Academy. And that is like our own personal Hogwarts where we help people to step into their real life superpowers so that they can do more for the world. And for us, that's pretty badass itself, right? But that's not what we're sharing today. Today, we are sharing the two most significant badass moments that set that stage. And I want to make it clear, this is not something that we've done before. At least not on this level. So you guys get to see it today.
So we're going to give you a little bit of our personal stuff right here. So both of us were those weird kids with extra sensory gifts.
Still are
like mediumship and the ability to see auras, right? So as a kid, for me, I just assumed that because I could see these things and sense these things, that everybody could do it.
Yeah.
So it never entered my mind to do anything in the intuitive arts for a living like we do now, because I honestly didn't think it was the thing. I didn't think it was a thing at all, because it was like the thing that people on TV do and they're weird, right? They're like, I'm like, I don't want to be that person, and my parents supported it and they treated it like it was natural. They couldn't really explain how it worked, but they didn't shut me down.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it as a living. So it wasn't ever in my mind. Instead, I went into the arts. And I was a classically trained professional singer for 20 years on the Las Vegas Strip. That was my dream, my life, everything. That was my whole life, right? In 2006, I divorced in the wake of a huge betrayal that sparked off my dark night of the soul. And because of the shock and the grief of that, I lost my voice to spasmodic dysphonia, which is an incurable vocal disorder. I could still sing, but I could barely speak. It was like I had to speak between spasms, which were like about 5 seconds apart. So the vocal cords will slam together uncontrollably. And as a professional singer, it's very hard to perform when you also need to speak. And I was getting ulcers on my throat from the trauma of this 24-hour, But I needed other people to speak for me on the phone. It was very frustrating for 2 years. And finally, after my voice doctor offered to start shooting Botox into my vocal cords to stop them from spasming, I said, absolutely not, after reading what it could do to my own voice, should my own voice ever come back. And at that point, I vowed to find a more lasting and permanent cure on my own. I was going to beat this thing. Yep. So enter the dark night of the soul.
Boom, 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 boom.
You know what happens next. I had to dig deep to do shadow work. I had to find others, which I did, who had also cured this disorder. And there are very few out there, but they are out there. So I began the shadow work. I began studying the mechanics of my natural gifts. I began doing deep emotional unpacking and learning energy work like Reiki until I met David in 2008, 2 years into my journey, who was already a master hypnotherapist and working with clients in the metaphysical spiritual niche. So immediately we began working together. It was just natural.
Collided.
It was just, let's go, which was great because I still had to communicate in a whisper And I was starting to work on clients at that point. So he could do all the talking, which you guys know he's pretty good at.
I like to talk.
We kept peeling off layers that first 6 months together of my personal trauma until one night I had a final core memory trigger event. Story for another day.
Yeah.
But David took me into a journey through hypnosis into that last dark, scary corner where my inner child was terrified, and it brought this huge emotional release. So we're like, okay, great. That's another layer. Let's keep working. We went to bed, and in the night, I experienced an epic dream that, looking back, was the groundwork and the vision for Zen Ed Academy, the school we've created today. I was so excited. I grabbed a whiteboard and started outlining my vision for David. Yeah. And he did not say a word for a long time, like an hour. Mm-hmm. And then he finally said, you realize you've been speaking clearly for an hour. And that was May 2nd, 2009. And we were off to the races. And here we are.
So in that moment, my eyes were like this. I'm sure she thought that it was because of her story, which was an epic story. But no, it was because she was talking. I hadn't heard her voice, like her natural voice, ever. So for me, that was a big moment. So back to my story, or onto my story. My mom was a heroin addict. She's passed away now. Even though she was not abusive in the physical or emotional sense, we were eventually sent to foster homes for a few years so that she could get clean and sober. There were a lot of times that she would put us in danger because of neglect on the regular. This is a regular event that happens. Sometimes leaving us without food. I didn't think anything of it. I was a kid. So we were kids in diapers that never got changed. And when we were older, I would remember even in those diaper moments when my mom would be laying out in the hall by the door just so that she would wake up when we woke up so that we would be safe. And she didn't wake up, and we ended up like stepping over her and going into the kitchen. Because I was the oldest, I would be responsible for making sure that all the kids ate and, had everything that they need. So I had to grow up very young, very fast. But I remember some family outings that we have where we would go and dig into dumpsters in the back of grocery stores just to find food. This is just one many story of many other stories. And that's not the story that I necessarily want to talk about today. The one that I do want to talk about is when I was about 3 years old, still in diapers, I found a bag of heroin in my mom's purse and ate it because, that's what kids do at 3 years old.
Sugar.
Looks like candy, sugar, let's eat it. Instead of taking me to the hospital immediately, she followed me around for 3 days with a strainer until she found it in my diaper instead of like a normal parent who would take their child to the emergency room.
Normal parents don't have heroin in their purse, so just.
Oh yeah, there's that too. The point of this is that instead of going down the wrong path like a lot of kids would do in that situation or have done, I ended up channeling all of that dysfunction into learning, into studying. And I was an excellent student, 4.0 grades, college valedictorian, ended up working for IBM. Great student, right? But my closest and my only full blood brother, Andy, did not fare so well. He ended up running the streets, getting involved with drugs, doing all kinds of crazy shit. And he was eventually shot and killed in a drug-related incident at only 19 years of age. For me, I remember the moment when I got the phone call, my life shut down. I could not comprehend what was being said. And it took me about 10 years to unravel that trauma. And that was my life-altering event. And that really pushed me into doing what Heather did, doing that deep emotional work, digging deep into the shadow work, digging deep into understanding those gifts that had opened up even more, because that's what happens with trauma is a lot of times your intuitive gifts, your psychic gifts end up opening up even more, even though these were things that I had when I was a kid. And again, like Heather, I thought this was all normal. I thought everybody operated the way that I did. So I went from working at IBM to pursuing a bigger passion, helping others through the kind of deep trauma that I had to heal from with my brother's violent death.
So when we met in 2008, we both had nothing. I was a single mom still recovering from the economy collapsing at the same time that I decided to get a divorce, which is like, let's just do all the hard things at once, right, and have this disorder to deal with. And so I had like 2 cents to my name at the time.
And didn't even have 2 pennies to rub together, as they say. At the time, I was exchanging room and board literally a closet like Harry Potter. And I remember Heather telling me, you realize you're living in a closet, right? Do you understand how Harry Potter this is right now? You're into all this magical, crazy, wild shit, and you're living in a closet among these muggles. I mean, they weren't muggles. They were still very open. And I was doing tech help for a metaphysical startup after a breakup that I had, and I was rebuilding my life at the time.
So over the next few years, we built an in-person business, which you might know as Zen Rose Garden, while we trained as craniosacral hypnotherapists.
Too.
Yeah, well, craniosacral therapist. I got my hypnotherapy certification as well. And I completed my PhD in spiritual counseling with a double master's in comparative theology and spiritual counseling, natural healing, along with finally getting certified as a spirit medium and getting down to the mechanics of how both our gifts worked on not just a spiritual level, but on a physiological brain level. And if you guys follow us, you know that's our jam, is to like, here's your brain on mediumship.
Here's your brain on your superpowers. Right. Here's your super brain on your superhuman powers. And I've been studying the incredible powers and potential of the mind because that's what I did. During all of this growing up, I just threw my mind into learning and reading and exploring books like fantasy books and books about the mind and all these things and science fiction, and wondering, how could I make this possible? How could I make this real? And also studying human behavior, and ended up becoming a certified hypnotherapist. Now we're at the point where that vision is materializing. We no longer have private clients, but now we have incredible students from all over the world in this fantastic community. It's an amazing community, which is a direct result of my own personal quest to find that chosen family, a place where I could feel safe and a place where we could allow other people to feel safe. And that is our badass story together. Let us know in the comments what your badass moments are.
We want to hear your story.
If you like this video, be sure to like it, subscribe, spank the bell, do all the cool shit.
Do all the things.
And we will see you in the next video. I want to say thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for hanging out with us. We'll see you in the next video.
See you in the next video.